We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Monica Sementilli, guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony, as charged in count 1 of the indictment.
After a long 10-week trial, a California woman has been convicted of plotting her celebrity hairstylist husband's death with her former porn star lover as part of a plot to collect life insurance money. As Monica Sementilli awaits her sentencing, we're taking a look at some of the most shocking moments from her murder trial. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Back in January of 2017, 49-year-old celebrity hairstylist Fabio Sementilli was just hanging out at his house outside Los Angeles, watching TV alone in his backyard, while his wife, Monica, ran to the store. And suddenly, 2 men attacked him from behind. He was stabbed 7 times in the neck, chest, thigh. He was left to bleed out from the cuts to 2 major arteries. And the 2 men ransacked the bedroom in his upscale Woodland Hills home, eventually taking the recorder that stored security video and apparently drove away in his own car, Fabio's Porsche. Now, a neighbor's surveillance camera caught the Porsche leaving the driveway, allegedly with the 2 suspects inside. The car, in fact, was found a few days later abandoned not far away with drops of blood inside. Now, at first, LAPD detectives thought that this was a home invasion robbery. But then why didn't the suspects take the $8,000 Rolex that was still on Fabio's wrist? Fair question, right? And investigators, they were soon able to identify some of the blood at the scene. And that blood apparently belonged to a man named Robert Baker, a registered sex offender and former porn star who was working as a racquetball coach at the gym that Fabio and his wife Monica were members of. What they were eventually able to uncover was shocking. Monica had apparently been having a lurid affair with Baker, who she referred to in messages as her soulmate. Veteran Los Angeles homicide detective Mitzi Roberts says that investigators uncovered thousands of messages between Monica and Baker, both sent via text and on a secret encrypted messaging app called Viber. And those messages also included X-rated photos and videos. The 2 had been discussing their desire to run away together. But Monica wasn't going to divorce her husband. That's what police say led to Baker deciding he needed to get Fabio out of the way so he could have Monica all to himself. And prosecutors say that Monica helped him do it. On the day of the murder, while Fabio and Monica's daughters weren't home, Monica left to go run some errands, ending up at a Target. And then this is really interesting because surveillance footage shows she seemed much more interested in what was happening on her phone rather than shopping. Why? That's because, according to authorities, Monica was watching the attack, watching the murder. They believe she accessed her home security system while she was in the store, watching her lover and his accomplice brutally kill her husband of almost 20 years. Now, beyond the apparent motive of wanting to move on with her new lover, there were also allegations, shocking, of greed. How many times do we see this happen? So Fabio Sementilli was a successful hairstylist turned beauty brand executive. The family lived in this large home in Woodland Hills, nice cars, went on luxury vacations. But on top of the money that Fabio was making in the event of his death, guess what? Life insurance would pay out more than $1.5 million. And a little more than 6 months after the murder, Robert Baker and Monica Sementilli were both indicted on murder and conspiracy charges. Eventually, in 2023, Baker entered a no-contest plea, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Baker has maintained that Monica was not involved in her husband's killing in any way, saying she didn't know what he was planning to do, didn't even know he was the perpetrator even after the murder. Now, remember when I said there were 2 men here, right? So this second man, Christopher Austin, was also arrested. He apparently was a longtime friend of Baker's, who Baker apparently roped into helping him kill Fabio with the promise of money once the job was done. Austin entered a guilty plea to second-degree murder and the personal use of a knife in exchange for truthful testimony against Monica. 8 years almost to the day after Fabio was so brutally killed, his wife went on trial for his murder in Los Angeles County. During opening statements, prosecutors laid out why Monica felt that the only way to get what she wanted was to get rid of Fabio. while the defense argued that just because Monica had an affair didn't mean she conspired to kill anyone. Now, when the prosecution started its openings, Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman definitely warned the jury that her comments would not be quick. And guess what? She was right. Her opening statement ended up taking days, and she just absolutely eviscerated Monica during her presentation.
So this leads us to the issue of motive. And as you heard during jury selection, motive is not an element we have to prove, but it's a big issue in this case. Financial gain as a special circumstance is one of the motives in this case. So she and Baker decided that Fabio was getting in the way of their future plans to be together, for her to become Mrs. Baker. If she divorced Fabio, she was going to lose her social standing, and many, if not all, of her friends. Her family would never forgive her, and they would never accept somebody like Robert Baker, who, as I said, was nothing like Fabio. But if her beloved husband was murdered, people would feel sorry for her. She would be a victim, and therefore they might forgive and accept what they would think were just poor decisions by somebody who was a sad, grieving widow. And the defendant realized that the only way to maintain a reputation as Fabio's devoted wife and a mother to their children without the risk of turning everyone against her was to become a victim. The only way to get rid of Fabio and shed her old life without losing the lifestyle to which she was accustomed was to kill her husband. So instead of being seen as this self-centered, ungrateful, liar and cheat, everyone would feel sorry for her because she would become Fabio's devastated widow who lost the love of her life.
Some of the most shocking moments during the trial came when the prosecution revealed that Monica was actually sexting with Robert Baker during Fabio's funeral services.
On February 2nd and 3rd, those were days that they had a viewing of the body. The defendant sent nude pictures of herself at 12:25 in the afternoon, 12:27 in the afternoon, 12:40 in the afternoon, and you're going to hear that these photographs weren't just nude selfies, they were close-up photographs of her vagina.
Wow. I imagine that has to be very uncomfortable for everybody in that courtroom, the jury, the family members, the defendant herself. And as the day wound down, after speaking for more than 6 hours, the prosecutor warned there was a lot more to go.
As I mentioned, today I was going to speak all day, and it looks like I will be speaking for a good portion of the day on Tuesday when you return. Again, keep in mind that what I am showing you is the wealth of evidence that the defendant created that's going to be presented to you through various witnesses in this case over the course of the next several weeks. Thank you for your attention today.
Thank you.
But here's the thing. The trial was actually put on pause after the prosecutor was in a car crash on the way to the courthouse. Now, fortunately, she was okay. Her remarks resumed a few days later on January 29th and went for a few more hours.
At the end of this case, I'm going to have the opportunity to discuss with you all of the evidence that comes in, that's going to be presented over the course of the trial, and the law that the judge is going to provide to instruct you. And at that time, my partner, DA Heather Stagel, and I are going to ask that you find the defendant guilty of the charges, that is the crime of murder of her husband, Fabio Sementilli, along with the special circumstance allegations of murder for financial gain and murder by means of lying in wait, as well as count 2, that being the conspiracy to commit murder of Fabio Sementilli. And when it comes to these special allegations, that as to the special allegations, that you find them to be true. Thank you.
Okay, now let's talk about the defense. So one of Monica's defense attorneys, Blair Burke, spoke, but for much less time than the prosecution. But to be clear, It was no less passionate than what we saw from the prosecution.
It is our privilege and our great responsibility to be representing Monica Sementilli. Monica, can you stand up, please? Representing Monica Sementilli in defending against these charges that we believe the evidence will show are untrue. Since the moment this woman was arrested 7.5 years ago, Monica has steadfastly maintained that she is innocent of these charges, and she has consistently pled not guilty in this case. Monica has from the start made clear that there was absolutely no reason, no desire that she would have ever wanted her husband Fabio to be dead. On behalf of Ms. Sementilli, we implore you to do one thing, which is wait until you form any opinion in this case, until you've been able to look and see the evidence in the case. Not Ms. Silverman's claim about what the evidence is, not even my claim about what the evidence is, but the evidence that will be presented in this case. The witnesses who will talk to you in this case. You decide whether it's truthful testimony. You decide whether those witnesses are believable. And that is how we have justice in the United States of America in a criminal trial. Not just because a prosecutor tells you it's so, but because the evidence either proves or doesn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Monica has committed a crime, that Monica somehow wanted her husband dead for some reason.
So the defense's main argument was that the prosecution may be able to prove that Monica had a lurid affair, but they couldn't prove that she was involved in her husband's murder.
That somehow that is supposed to prove to you that Monica Sementilli is guilty of murder. That Monica Sementilli is guilty somehow of conspiring to kill her husband because she had an affair. We have not, from the start of this case 7.5 years ago, ever once contested that Monica Sementilli probably made the most fatal mistake of her life when she entered into an affair with Robert Baker. But that has nothing to do with Monica wanting Fabio dead or conspiring to kill him. You will learn that only 2 people planned this crime and carried it out, and the evidence will show that neither of those 2 people is seated here. Ladies and gentlemen, after 7.5 years of waiting to finally have her day in court, not guilty, ladies and gentlemen, will be the only just verdict in this case. Thank you.
Dozens of witnesses were called during this trial, and that included detectives who said they were able to identify some of the blood at the scene as being Baker's. And even though the DVR that contained surveillance footage from the Sementilli home was taken when the suspects left, there was footage collected from neighboring homes, and it showed Monica leaving to go to that Target, and then a short time later, 2 men park down the street and jog over to the home. They're inside for less than 10 minutes, and then the Porsche is seen leaving the driveway. One of Monica's daughters came home just 1 minute later and found her father's bloody body. The chief medical examiner testified that Fabio had stab wounds to his face, jawline, neck, chest, upper thigh. It is a horrendous and very brutal and personal attack that he apparently didn't see coming. The medical examiner noted he had no defensive wounds on his hands or his wrists or inner forearms. Didn't see it coming. During testimony about the autopsy, Monica broke down crying, refused to look at the photos that were displayed on a large screen in the courtroom. According to prosecutors, Monica hounded police and the insurance company about when she could expect the large life insurance payout. Now, the defense downplayed that, explaining that when you suddenly lose a loved one and have no independent source of income like Monica, who didn't have a job, this is what you do. You work to get access to funds. But there were several interesting bits of testimony that continued to show Monica in a very bad light. You had a digital forensics expert testified about thousands of emails and messages sent between Baker and Monica, including information about where the surveillance system was in the home and how to access it. Fabio's sister told the jury that Monica never purchased a permanent resting place for Fabio's cremated remains. And Monica apparently refused an offer of security for her home after the murder, saying she and her two daughters weren't scared and that they would rely on something she called Sementilli power. Strange, right? After just two people break in and kill your husband, you're not scared? And there were several times when Monica lied to the police and others, saying she didn't even really know Robert Baker, the racquetball instructor at her gym. She also told investigators she couldn't remember the passcode to her iPhone. Turns out it was Baker's birth year, by the way, and she'd allegedly taken to calling herself Mrs. Baker because, quote, her Italian last name was too long to pronounce. But the state's star witness was Christopher Austin, right? The accomplice who went with Robert Baker to the Sementilli home and helped him kill Fabio. He was living in Alaska at the time of the murder, but police found evidence that Baker had been in contact with him, paid for flights and a hotel for him to come to stay in Los Angeles. And during Austin's testimony, we learned there was actually an attempt to kill Fabio the day before while he was away from home. Investigators discovered that Monica had messaged Baker telling him that she sent Fabio to pick up Chinese food. And Baker says he dropped Austin off at the shopping center where the restaurant was with instructions to stab Fabio. But when Baker came back to pick him up, Austin said he couldn't go through with it. Austin admitted that he stabbed Fabio once during the murder, but said he had his eyes closed for much of the attack. He indicated how sorry he was and told the jury he had even contemplated self-harm, hurting himself, taking his own life. And he ended up pleading guilty in exchange for a prison sentence of 16 years to life, and he was required to testify against Monica. Austin said on the stand that he didn't know Monica well, but he had met her, said Baker told him multiple times that Monica wanted her husband gone. Austin testified that he and Baker talked about the large insurance payout that Monica would get if Fabio died. And after more than 40 witnesses testified over 29 days, the state rested its case, and it was then the defense's turn. And who did they call? They called Monica's sister, Anna Crescentini, to the stand to testify about Monica's character and how she acted after Fabio's death. And she seemed sure of her sister's innocence, but on cross-examination, the prosecution pointed out that Monica hadn't told her about her affair with Baker and had been hiding a lot from her.
So, if you could just describe Monica's demeanor during this time, does she appear that she's affected at all by this?
Of course, she was very sad and devastated, quiet. At times I had to lead her. She wanted me to sit beside her. She wanted to There were so many people coming those 3 days. Fabio was a very popular person. A lot of people came, and she cried. She laughed with some people when they told her stories about Fab, memories, just like Morella did, just like I did. She was heartbroken.
She was emotionally drained and physically exhausted.
Correct.
Is that fair? Okay.
Yes.
And you stayed with her until your parents got home because you were worried about her.
Yes.
Did you know that those 3 days, February 3rd, 4th, and 6th, that she was sending explicit, graphic, sexually explicit photos of herself naked to her boyfriend?
No, obviously I did not know.
And did you know that she was sending them from your parents' house?
I had no idea.
If I may approach to show some photos. This is February 3rd.
Of course. Again, Councilman, you do not need permission.
February 3rd, if you want to take a look at those.
Do I look or wait? I don't need to see these.
Okay, so February 3rd, these are graphically explicit naked photos, and that's the day of Fabio's viewing, right?
I didn't see the date.
Well,
tell me.
February 3rd is the viewing, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yes. Is that your mom's bed then in that one photo that she's laying on naked and the photo that she sent?
It looks like.
That's your mom's bed?
I'm not sure whose bed that is.
Okay, well that's in your mom's house with the dresser right there.
Can I see the dresser? Yes, that is, I recognize the dresser. It's in my mom's house.
Okay.
It's not my mom's bed.
And then on Saturday, again, the viewing. You want to take a look at those photographs? It's a picture of the defendant's vagina, blocked out, of course. A picture of her showing her breasts. That's her wedding ring. You recognize your sister's wedding ring, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then a picture of her finger in her vagina, blocked out, right? Right? That's what you just saw?
Yes, that's what I saw.
Did you know that was, again, at your parents' house?
No, of course not. I didn't know any of this.
Okay.
But probably one of the most anticipated witnesses was, of course, Robert Baker, right? Monica's lover who had admitted to stabbing Fabio to death.
Did you plan and execute the plan to murder Fabio Sementilli?
Yes,
And did you in fact do so?
I did.
And who was with you at that time?
Just Chris was. He was a lookout.
All right, we'll get to that. You see the defendant seated over here, Monica Sementilli?
Yes.
You knew her well at the time of the murder, is that right?
Yes.
Is it fair to say you were in a romantic or sexual relationship with her?
Yes. You can say that.
Was that true?
Yes.
Did she have anything to do with the planning or the execution of the plan to kill Fabio Sementilli?
No.
You're sure?
I'm positive.
So, were you seeing her about a year before he was murdered?
Yes.
Did she ever indicate to you that she was going to leave him for you?
We talked about it, and it didn't seem like it was gonna. It didn't seem like it was really gonna happen.
Why not?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't push it because I don't want to run her away.
So did she talk to you about, ever tell you that she would divorce her husband for you?
We touched on it lightly, but I could tell that she wasn't gonna do that. That wasn't gonna happen.
And eventually, did that become one of the reasons why you decided to murder him?
I murdered him because I wanted her.
Well, you kind of had her already, but not the way you wanted, or what?
Absolutely. I didn't have her the way I wanted her. I wanted to have easier access. I wanted her to be around me and with me.
Let me get, if I may at this time, to the murder of Fabio Sementilli. When did that thought become more than just a thought in your mind? When did you start thinking that you might do that?
Around the holidays.
Christmas holidays?
Yeah.
That would be 2016.
Yes.
And did the Christmas holidays have some effect on you that
It was sort of.
convinced you that you thought you might do this?
It was a tipping point. Yeah.
And can you tell us why?
Well, up to that point, I had been seeing Monica a lot, on and off, and it had been good. I guess Fabio was staying home a lot, so that means I was limited to seeing her a lot. And
Why
holiday.
was that? Was she with the family?
Right, she was with the family. She couldn't get to the phone. I couldn't see her, and it played a little number on me, and it was bad because I would want to talk to her and see her, and it just wasn't happening, and it was, I can't, and it was that type of thing.
Now remember, he was called by the defense, and during cross-examination, the prosecution was able to show that Baker lied about multiple things during his testimony, impeaching him, pretty much saying anything Baker had to say couldn't be trusted. So after that, we move on to closing arguments, which began on April 3rd. And just like with opening statements, the prosecution once again spent days doing a review of everything the jury had seen throughout this very long trial.
When we started, it was around the time of the 8th anniversary of Fabio Sementilli's murder. And we've come far since that date when we started an opening statement. And if you recall, I told you from the beginning that the evidence in this case is enormous. And in my opening statement, I laid out what I expected the people's case to look like. Throughout the last several weeks, we've then presented exactly what I told you we were going to present. And in addition to that, we presented much more. As I told you at the beginning of this case, during opening statement, that this would be a case about betrayal, it's a case about greed, it's a case about lust. And during the trial, I looked up the definition of betrayal, and the judge is going to instruct you that you can't do that. You can't look things up when you go back into your deliberation. So I did it for you. And I wanted to see what the dictionaries defined betrayal as. And this is some of the adjectives, the synonyms that I came up with. Deception, disloyalty, treachery, duplicity, devious, cheat, trickery, fraud, cunning, breach of trust, false-hearted, underhanded, unfaithful. Each of those words perfectly describe this defendant. This defendant who was the mastermind behind her own adoring husband's gruesome murder. And you were told that there was no reason in the world that the defendant would want Fabio harmed. Well, she also told you that the defendant was the one who was duped, as if, again, the defendant is the victim in this case. But in order to buy in to that fiction, you'd have to ignore a mountain of evidence to believe any of that.
The defense argued that while the state had a lot of evidence of Monica's apparent moral depravity, they didn't have evidence of murder or conspiracy.
We have just discussed, and you will discuss, I assume, in the jury room, whether or not just establishing that Monica Sementilli had an affair, as explicit as it was, as terrible as it was, as betrayal as it was, all the adjectives you can use, she is guilty of that. The question is, was there a conspiracy to commit murder to kill her husband? We know Austin, we know Baker did that. Monica was not part of that. For some reason, and Ms. Silverman can explain it or not, beyond just wanting to catch murderers who are responsible for murder, they wanted her. And that's why they spent those 4 months trying to find anything they could, anything, and found nothing more than lurid conduct, which they were more than happy to put up on the screen and up on the Elmo and testify to, and that was it. What did they spend most of their time on? The phone records, the phone calls, the deletions, the WhatsApp, the Viber, all these things that they say is proof beyond a reasonable doubt, mind you, that she's guilty of murder. All they show is she desperately did not want someone to find out that she was having an affair with this lowlife. She didn't want to kill her husband. She was happy the way it was. The affair was secret. She was living a double life for a whole year and 2 months. Nobody knew about it. Traveling to Vegas wherever they went. Whatever you think about that, and I'm sure it's not much, it was working. But it wasn't working for Baker. It's caught my eye when Ms. Silverman put up these words up there, because she looked up the definition of betrayal. And I looked it up too, and she's right. Deception, disloyalty, treachery, duplicity, devious. I guess D's have a lot to do with it. Cheat, trickery, fraud, cunning, breach of trust, false-hearted, underhanded, unfaithful. Every one of those definitions applied to her. Because she was keeping it secret, she was being devious, she broke her trust, she was false-hearted, she was underhanded, she was unfaithful, disloyal, treachery. But then I realized there's one word missing in the definition of betrayal. Oh, there it is. Murder. There is a big difference. Even I could figure this out. Between cheating, disloyal, underhandedness, breach of trust, and murder. You've got to be a pretty evil person to do that. And I submit to you, she is not. And she did not.
So what ends up happening? Well, the jury deliberated for about a day and a half. They sent the judge a couple of questions related to the two admitted killers, Robert Baker and Christopher Austin. And on April 11th, they announced they reached a verdict.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Monica Sementilli, guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony as charged in count 1 of the indictment. We further find the murder to be of the first degree. We further find the allegation that the murder of Fabio Sementilli was intentional and carried out by the defendant, Monica Sementilli, for financial gain within the meaning of Penal Code Section 190.2A1 to be true. We further find the allegation that the defendant, Monica Sementilli, intentionally killed the victim by means of lying in wait within the meaning of Penal Code Section 190.2A15 to be true. Dated April 11th, 2025, juror seat number 10, foreperson. In the same case, title, and cause, we, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Monica Sementilli, guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder in violation of Penal Code Section 182A1, a felony as charged in count 2 of the indictment. Dated April 11th, 2025, juror number 10, foreperson. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are these your verdicts? So say you one, so say you all.
Yes. Guilty of murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Monica broke down as the verdict was read before being led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. And in a news release after the verdict, Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman congratulated the two deputy DAs who prosecuted the case, applauding their hard work and dedication, saying these experienced prosecutors and detectives investigated and prosecuted this case over 8 years, painstakingly putting together each piece of this murder puzzle to overcome the lies and deception of Monica Sementilli and her lover, who thought they had made a clean getaway. So Monica is scheduled to be sentenced on June 23rd, and she faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. But that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us here on this trial recap. Please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.